The Relatives Came is a great picture book to use as a model or mentor text for writers. This text has a great use of syntactical layering, and what that means is that the author has purposely used syntax to convey a meaning. When I say syntax, that involves sentence structure, whether the sentence structure is used conventionally and correctly with simple sentences, complex, compound, and compound complex sentences written correctly with the correct conventions, or if the writer has chosen to use the craft of artful ands by using and over and over without the proper conventions of commas to convey a message, or if the writer has purposely written in a run-on sentence to try to convey a message to the writer. So while we're reading this picture book, notice the annotations I have made, and I want you to think inside your head while you're having that inner conversation, why did this author, Cynthia Rylett, why did she use these particular types of syntax tools to convey her message to her reader? Now keep in mind she's a published author, so she knows what she's doing when she's writing. She has the proper tools to write in complete sentences and write formally. But she has chosen purposely in this text to play with syntax in an artful fashion to convey a message to her readers. Again, note the annotations I have made for you all so that you can have an inner conversation in your head, keeping the purpose of syntax. Why did this writer purposely take some liberties with the syntax of the sentences? The relatives came. It was in the summer of the year when the relatives came. They came up from Virginia. They left when their grapes were nearly purple enough to pick, but not quite. Notice in this picture the relatives have packed their bags and they're well on their way. They're so packed in the car, you can see even luggage going off the side of the car while they're on their way to the relatives' home. They had an old station wagon that smelled like a real car, and in it they put an ice chest full of soda pop and some boxes of crackers and some bologna sandwiches, and they came up from Virginia. They left at 4 in the morning when it was still dark, before even the birds were awake. Notice the relatives' car on the bottom between. The relatives are having to encounter quite a bit of rural terrain, as you can see them wandering and winding around hills and mountaintops. You can see on the top of the right-hand side the car moving across the terrain. They drove all day long and into the night, and while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses and different mountains, and they thought about their almost purple grapes back home. They thought about Virginia, but they thought about us, too, waiting for them. And you can see the relatives running out to welcome the relatives traveling in for the family gathering. How exciting. So they drank up all their pop and ate up all their crackers and traveled up all those miles until finally they pulled into our yard. Look at all the relatives greeting and hugging and loving. Even the dogs are running out to greet everyone. Then it was hugging time. Talk about hugging. Those relatives just passed us all around their car, pulling us against their wrinkled Virginia clothes, crying sometimes, They hugged us for hours. So maybe a bit of hyperbole, maybe not. Maybe they did hug for hours, but I would assume hyperbole at that point. Then it was into the house, and so much laughing and shining faces and hugging in the doorways. You'd have to go through at least 4 different hugs to get from the kitchen to the front room, those relatives. Wow, sometimes we don't know when others are eavesdropping on our happiness, but what a wonderful people watching experience of love and happiness and family. A lovely family gathering, and you cannot have a lovely family gathering without favorite foods. And the joy and laughter continue as all the family members circle around the table. And it's always fun to look and see different dishes that we don't see every day because they're made for special holidays. And finally, after a big supper, 2 or 3 times around until we all got a turn at the table, there was quiet talk, and we were in 2s and 3s through the house. Let's notice this sentence, and let's think about why the author chose to write this sentence in this manner. The relatives weren't particular about beds, which was good since there weren't any extras. So a few squeezed in with us, and the rest slept on the floor. Some with their arms thrown over the closest person, or some with an arm across one person and a leg across another. Did you notice that was one super long sentence, not a paragraph? I wonder why the author chose to write the sentence in such a manner. What was she trying to convey with the syntax expressed by that one particular sentence? It was different going to sleep with all that new breathing in the house. Wonderful family time. The older family members along with the youngest of the family members. How wonderful to see the interaction and the wonderful things the young children are learning from one's elders. The relatives stayed for weeks and weeks. They helped us tend the garden, and they fixed any broken things they could find. They ate up all our strawberries and melons, then promised we could eat up all their grapes and peaches when we came to Virginia. What wonderful gifts this family has, and how they've been able to come together and bring the sound of music to bring harmony to this family gathering. These family members are taking a very important family picture. If you notice, I've made a crude arrow at the top, and the arrow is pointing to the American flag. So this American flag alludes to the reader. This could be, since it's summer, it could be Memorial Day, or it could be the 4th of July. One might predict Veterans Day. However, you have to go back to what you can connect and know that it's summer. So either it's Memorial Day or the 4th of July. And if you know anything about the growing season in relationship to the grapes, that might help as well determine whether it's Memorial Day or the 4th of July. So what a quite little small piece of illusion to also symbolize the time of year. But none of us thought about Virginia much. We were so busy hugging and eating and breathing together. Oh, what a wonderful family gathering. Finally, after a long time, the relatives loaded up their ice chest and headed back to Virginia at 4 in the morning. We stood there in our pajamas and waved them off in the dark. We watched the relatives disappear down the road. Then we crawled back into our beds that felt too big and too quiet. We fell asleep. It's a quick picture of everybody waving goodbye. And the relatives drove on all day long and into the night. And while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses and different mountains, and they thought about their dark purple grapes waiting at home in Virginia. But they thought about us, too, missing them, and they missed us. And when they were finally home in Virginia, they crawled into their silent, soft beds and dreamed about the next summer. And the grapes were beginning to ripen.